So I was doing some research on the effects of pornography, and I came across this article that dealt with what pornography does to the human brain. And the contents blew me away. I will link the article down below if you want to check it out yourself, but I'm basically going to summarize it for you because it was so impactful on me, and I think it needs to be shared with the rest of the world. What's up? Welcome to Relationships Examined, where we explore relationships and sexuality. I'm Shay Manhertz, and let's get into it. So the article talks about 9 things. It categorizes 9 things that we can talk about when it comes to the effects of pornography on the human brain. Let's get into it. Now, in the first part of the article, it talks about sexually explicit material or pornography triggering mirror neurons. Now, these neurons are associated with mirroring behavior or mimicking behavior and even planning out behavior. Now, when it comes to pornography, when it's being watched, this mirror neuron system triggers arousal, which then gives rise to sexual tension and a need for an outlet. Now, when the male acts out, often through masturbation, this leads to hormonal and neurological consequences, which are designed to bind him to the object that he's focusing on. You get where I'm going with this? Now, in God's plan, this would be binding the man to his wife. But for many men out there, it's binding them to an image on a screen. Smartphone, laptop, television. Therefore, pornography enslaves a man to an image, therefore hijacking the biological response, which is intended to bond a man to his wife, and inevitably loosening that bond. That's so serious, friends. I mean, I'm like, man, that's whoo. In point number 2, it talks about one of the most powerful chemicals in the brain when it comes to pleasure and reward, dopamine. And so we know this in drugs and in meth, it's tested, and we know that dopamine surges when the brain experiences pleasure and reward. When it comes to pornography addiction, though, it's very interesting that the brain really surges with dopamine when novelty is a category of choice, when basically people are exposed to various types of pornography. I'm not going to go into the types, but there's hundreds of types of pornography out there, hundreds of genres out there, many to choose from. And so because of this novelty, pornography users become arousal addicts. They get arousal addiction, which makes them less satisfied with long-time partners or the same partner. So they're more aroused by an image on the screen or multiple images on the screen than with one sexual partner, which is God's plan. So you see the effect it can have on relationships when pornography is involved. Point number 3 has to do with why pornography users tend to seek out new experiences of pornography and new variety of pornography, and not being satisfied with the same ones that they always go to. This has to do with something called the Coolidge Effect, which is basically people having renewed sexual interest because of either a new variety of partners or new sexual partners becoming available, even after they refuse sexual interaction from previous sexual partners. And so because of this renewed sexual interest, this is the boost for why pornography is so addictive, because there's so much variety out there. There's so much new stuff happening all the time in the porn world that it keeps people renewed and sexually aroused all the time. And so that's what's up. Point number 4 in the article talks about overstimulation. So the reward circuitry in the brain becomes overstimulated as a result of viewing pornography because of rising repeated spikes of dopamine surges in the brain. And so because of this, we get desensitized and people seek harder, more hardcore type pornography in order to achieve the same high or pleasure, if you will. And so this basically keeps numbing the brain. Man, this is scary stuff. Point number 5 has to do with the way we behave, the way we think, and our emotional habits coming from the decisions that we make, especially when it comes to sexuality. And so when pornography is being used, this type of pattern affects our behaviors and our psychology on a huge level. In fact, it forms new circuitry in the brain. And the more pornography is being used, the stronger that circuitry becomes to facilitate that. And eventually it becomes a preferred pathway, a preferred route. And so it becomes harder to change because the brain is geared towards efficiency. And so can you imagine watching pornography for like 20, 25, 30 years, and all of a sudden you want to change to, get married, whatever, and it's hard. Point number 6 talks about what makes porn unique, namely novelty. Huge amounts of choice, huge amounts of variety. Unlike food and drugs, there are virtually no limitations to porn. It's everywhere, especially on the internet. You can find it. It's free. I'm not gonna say where, but you can find it anywhere on the internet. At the click of a button, it's there. With internet porn, you can escalate the experience by meeting with new partners or watching new genres, new variety, new experiences. And also, unlike food and drugs, pornography does not activate the brain's natural aversion system. Now, what does that mean? Like, when you like a food, you really like this food, and you eat it over and over and over and over again to the point where you feel like throwing up and you get sick of it. Yeah, with porn, the brain does not do that. And also the age where people start watching porn, teenage age, like 12, 13, 14 years old. And this is when the brain is at its peak when it comes to producing dopamine and becoming malleable and neuroplastic, which is really good, if you will, for forming addictions and rewiring the brain. And lastly, point number 7. I thought there were 9 points, but the other 2 points are actually just links to videos. And so point number 7 talks about the emotional results of addiction to pornography, like, say, for instance, anxiety, depression, loneliness, low motivation, concentration problems, negative self-image, and even erectile dysfunction. And a lot of folks think that erectile dysfunction is actually a physical problem. Actually, most of the time it's not. It's more of a neurological, psychological problem, in that because of so much pornography use, the brain is no longer stimulated enough by a physical sexual partner. And so it's just not sending enough signals down there to get the organ activated enough. And so, yeah, that's what's going on most of the time. So yeah, friends, this is serious stuff. We're talking about like pornography addiction and how this can have such a massive effect on the brain. But friends, don't be discouraged. If you are in that situation, take heart, because God is able. Ephesians talks about God being able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think. And you know what? That is so true. If you are a Christian, give this a shot. Like, say for instance, if you are a Christian, you should be definitely getting involved in that relationship with Christ. If you're not a Christian, consider Christianity and it will do wonders for you. But if you're a Christian and you're just going to church and going through the motions and just not really doing it, start doing it, because when it comes to this problem, Christ can definitely fix it, but you have to give him the permission. You have to allow him to work in your life, and that means getting involved in that relationship, getting in the word, fasting and praying, because when you fast and pray, you're training your body to abstain from pleasure, and so that translates into abstaining from behaviors that you don't want, namely pornography addiction. So try those things out. I'm going to come out with a video with more detail on how to avoid pornography, how to overcome the addiction, and stay posted for that. So stay encouraged, friends, as we are nearing the coming of Christ. And if you have that problem, if you have this issue, know that Christ can solve it. It is a process, it's a struggle. I know how you feel, it's pretty tough, but we can get through this. We are a community. We are going to go through this together, and I know that Christ is going to come through for you. All right, guys, if you like this content, please drop me a like and subscribe to this channel. If you have any ideas for other topics you want to discuss, drop me a comment down below and I'll check those out. All right, guys, be encouraged. God bless you. Love, joy, and peace.